Today on the Woodyard, we're going to show you the ugly side of firewood, the nasty crap. Here we go. So the other day I split a whole bunch of white oak. I moved a bunch of rounds that were over there, shoved them over here, and I got most of the good stuff done and put into the bin with the tractor. I used the 17 VS WOLFE RIDGE splitter, which is working out awesome for lifting these big bad boys. But there's something that goes unsaid that a lot of people don't talk about. And it's dealing with the trash, the garbage man, the junk, the nasty crap, the stuff that happens when you process wood. I'm going to show you a little bit about what happened. Now this is maybe 10 hours, 12 hours of splitting. So right here is dirt. You see right here, this is where I stand. All this debris, all this chaff is stuff that came off. And that's off of a single wedge. A single wedge is very efficient and clean as far as stuff, but bark comes off. You get lots of slivers and stuff, and a lot of people think I should save all this somehow in some way so that I can burn it, but it just isn't worth it. This, I mean, look at it all. It's all over here. And this is just stuff that came off of the rounds I was splitting, sawdust and stuff like that. Can't even put the log lift all the way down because it's so much trash built up here. So you can see the little bit of, I go down lower here. I'm going lower here so you can see the little bit of dirt here where the foot pedal is, and then all the trash that builds up all the way around it. And it goes all the way over there, mixed into here. So there's also stuff out here that needs to be raked up. So you can't just use the bucket to scoop this up because you get mostly dirt. So you got to rake a lot of this up. And this isn't bad. This is actually pretty clean. But then you come over here, you see there's a whole bunch of sawdust here too. And it gets all mixed in with the wood. You can see it kind of holds moisture just like mulch would do. So this stuff has got to be picked through and gone over. You roll the rounds through this stuff and that happens. You get debris like this on everything. So not good for the wood. I see there's still some oak in here. I got to sort through this and kind of pick through it. Bunch of ash, bunch of beech. But yeah, the nasty stuff that happens, a lot of people don't talk about it. And some people have been telling me, you should spread all that around, like make roads and kind of cover all the ground with all of the debris and the sawdust and stuff. And it sounds good at first, but trust me, I know that that creates bigger problems down the road. If you look at any big professional wood yard, people that have semi-loads of wood coming and going and a lot of bark and stuff, they clean it up all the time. And the reason they do that is mulch breaks down. Sawdust will turn to pudding very fast, within a matter of a year or two. And the more you build it up, the thicker it gets. Yeah, it's nice and soft. Yeah, you can drive on it. Yeah, you're not in mud then. I agree, that's all true. But eventually it turns to pudding and it gets softer and softer and softer and you're sinking in. And then you've got a big, big mess. You've gotta clean up the trash. So about a year ago, we bought these mafia blocks over here to put the trash in. So this is trash here, stuff that's just going to end up getting dumped. This stuff back here is all chips that are chipped up from tree jobs. So all this stuff is being used. So you got to do something with it. And then they got more branches from tree jobs sitting out here. And that'll probably just get loaded into a trailer and then taken way back into the corner of the woods. There's down in the corner back, there's a low spot where they've been just piling brush and getting rid of all the debris and stuff. So it's got to go somewhere. Now some people say, oh, you should burn it. You know, there's good fuel in it. Yeah, there is, but it's not worth our time. There's other more important things to do, like cutting and splitting and delivering and selling wood. That kind of stuff. That's what matters. But the cleanup is important. If you don't do it, it gets worse fast and you got to stay on it. So pretty much every time we get done with a big job, we will rake it up, clean it up, kind of level it off. But this is not done yet. We still got a lot to do here. And what I'm going to do today is all these cookies, I will take those and knock them in half and then throw them into a basket. The odd cuts like this here that aren't good enough for me to sell, the short ones, the ones that are all odd, I'll dig through all this, I'll fluff it all up with the tractor. I'll get rid of those, put those into the bin, and as I have good stuff in here, I'm going to try to pick it out by species so that I can get all the ash kind of split out of here. I did most of the ash already and get that put back into the ash bin. I'm going to take the beech and I'm going to take that and that's going to go into that bin you see right over there. It's kind of collapsed. I'm going to stand that all back up. So we're going to put the beech on one end and then on the other end is going to be hickory, which the hickory is up by the barn over there by the WOLFE RIDGE splitter. The stuff on the left, that is all hickory. That is going to go into the bin. back there that I just showed you, and then the cherry next to it is going to go into the cherry bin or wherever else I can find to put it. And then a lot of the stuff in here needs to be cut up yet. So there's still a lot of work. That's a new load of tree service stuff that just came in not long ago, so that's got to be cut up. And a lot of this stuff cannot be run through the processor because it's the big nasties. It's the stuff that would never fit, or it was going to create a lot of problems. You know, stuff like this here. You can see the size of this butt cut piece of ash, but there's still a lot of good wood in there. And that brings up one of the other things that we talk about a lot with other wood producers, and for those of you that are looking at getting into this, one of the other kind of not talked about topics is the quality of the wood that you get. It matters. This stuff here, yeah, there's a lot of wood in it. Yes, you can make a lot of good. There's a big piece of maple here. That's what this is, a big piece of soft maple. More ash here, but you can see the size of these are pretty big. There's some smaller stuff that might go through the processor, like this one here, probably this one here, this one underneath maybe, but that's got a crotch on it. The ugly stuff does not like the processor, or should I say the processor does not like ugly stuff. It's very picky when it comes to what it likes to eat. This is what it likes to eat. It likes the straight wood, the pretty wood, the size that it can manage decently. My favorite size is stuff that's about this big. This right here is probably like about a 12, 13 incher. Stuff like this is probably like a 11, 12 incher, even down to this size, which is probably about 6 inches. Here's another 6 incher. This one right here is about 8. That's the stuff that the processor really likes because you can just chuck right through it. If I had to pick one size to have all the time, it would be about this big. Right here, this is about a 9, 8, 9. Yeah, because I can do about a 9-inch wingspan there. That is a beautiful sized piece of wood, because when you knock that into 8 pieces, you got 8 beautiful pieces. So yeah, size matters. And when it comes to doing the production on this kind of stuff, if you were watching those last few videos I did where I was splitting the big nasty stuff, it's slow going. It is not speedy at all. So if you've got lots of time and you don't want to have to buy wood, go for the tree service wood, go for the big stuff. You get a lot of wood from it, but it's much slower. In the time it took me to process all these nasty things here, get them separated, put into the bins, I could have had 3 times as much stuff run through the blockbuster. The blockbuster is way more efficient, way fast, cleaner. There's a reason why processes are used by full-time professional firewood people. They're fast, they're efficient, they work. Now, brings up another thing I want to talk about. There was a guy not long ago that I talked to, was actually at the Ohio show, the Firewood International show, the International Firewood show. There was a guy that I was talking to, and he was telling me about the equipment that he has and what he wanted to get. And he was telling me that he wanted to get a top-of-the-line firewood splitter, a hydraulic splitter for firewood. I said, oh, those are really nice. I said, what are you thinking of getting? He was looking at either a WOLFE RIDGE or an Easton made. He was going to get one of their biggest, baddest, fastest, with an elevator, really good ones. And they're awesome machines. I said, well, that would be great. I said, do you have an elevator now? He says, yeah, I've got an elevator. I said, well, then you really don't need an elevator. And he says, yeah, but I want to get an elevator because that way I've got a second elevator that I can use for other things. I said, that makes sense. I said, now you're going to have to cut all those rounds to go into those splitters. I said, which I do still a lot of, and I enjoy it. And I get quite a bit of tree service wood. And I told him, I said, you know, if I was to spend the kind of money he was looking at, because it was in the upper 30s, low 40s, he wanted to get the biggest, the best, fastest, whatever. I said, do you realize you could buy a kind of an entry-level type of processor, something like the Blockbuster, for about the same amount of money? It will cut, split, and elevate your stuff, and you can take it places. I said, just think about what you could do with that versus what you can do with an actual high-end splitter, wrestling the big rounds around on there. And that's one of the other things I want to bring up. The other day when I was working, well, 2 or 3 days in a row, I worked out here, and maybe one day in between. I worked out here with the VS17. And like I said, I love it. It's awesome. It works great. But those big 200, 300, 400-pound rounds, the rounds that are 40 inches across that I was struggling with, you can see this one right here was part of one that was ripped. You can see it's ripped in half. When you get those big bad boys, they're heavy. They're hard to move. you still have to get the wood to the log lift. Even though you got a log lift, you got to get it on there somehow. And by yourself, it is a workout. And then once you get it up on the table, you got to get it over to the splitting area. And trust me, it is a lot of work. They're still very heavy. Now, one of the big advantages of a vertical splitter, once you split it, it stays right there. You get your 2 halves, you slide one out of the way, you start working on your first half, and you cut that to a quarter, and then you cut it to eighths, then you break those down, then you throw it off to the side. If you got an elevator, you can go up the elevator into a basket or into a bucket, and you can dump it. The vertical splitters are awesome because you can work in an area and not have to split the wood with a horizontal splitter, a great big round, and even if you got a log lift, great big round, you split it in half. What happens 90% of the time, if you're by yourself especially? Those 2 halves, one's going to go that way, one's going to go that way. They're going to fall right back off of you. You might catch one of them if you're careful, but I've seen people splitting the big stuff. It's a lot of work, which is why I still like to rip down the monsters. The big Mamba Jambas, the ones that are the 30, 35, 40-inch rounds from big trees, big yard trees basically, tree service stuff. I still like to rip them down. And people say, oh, you got that log lift, you'll never have to rip a piece of wood again. No, I'm still going to rip a lot of it because I don't want to kill myself trying to move those big rounds. Yes, you can do it, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. So I still like to rip them in halves or quarters because they're much more manageable, especially if you get a crotch, like a big one. If you get a big round that's 30, 40 incher and you got a great big area where a big branch came out the side, if you take the saw and you go right down the middle of where that crotch was, or your big knot that's sticking out there, I'm talking like a big 6, 8, 10 incher, 12 incher where a limb came out that was trimmed off, that's not going to split so easy. But with a saw, you can cut right through it, especially if you've got a decent size saw, a professional saw, one that's a 70cc or 80cc or 90cc saw, something with some power. You can cut right through that and you can make that into a very nice looking piece of wood if that's what you want to do. And you don't have to kill yourself. If you get a big saw, they're going to cut easier and faster by ripping. So keep all that in mind. Okay, that's enough blabbering on. I got work to do here. I'm going to get some of these rounds split up, put into the basket, and I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning today. So there, I just made the first bucket dump of hickory, no, beech, that's what it is, beech. But I am gonna put hickory in here. I'm gonna put all the beech down on that end as I get that split, and then the hickory will come in on this end. I'll rebuild this and make it like the $6 million man, better, faster, stronger than before. And I got 1 bucket of beech done, you saw that. I did a bunch of oak, I did a bunch of ash, kind of picking through the species right now. Right here you can see there's some oak that I just been throwing to the side. It's mostly red oak. And then I started in on the beech. I got almost 2 totes full again. I pushed some stuff over here. And so over here is the beech, and that's what I'm going to hammer on next. I see there's a piece of soft maple there. But yeah, all this beech in here, I'm going to get this shoved over, get that done, put that in the bin. And then all of the hickory that is up next to the WOLFE Ridge splitter over there by the barn, the stuff on that side, that's all hickory. That's going to go in that bin. And then the cherry on that side, that'll go back in the cherry bin. But today is done. I have to go do another job right now. So thought I'd get more done, but I always make a dent. I worked on a few hours. I got a bunch done. So I'll be back here tomorrow morning, 5:30 a.m. waiting for you to show up. I'll just be sitting here all night. You better be here, because I'm going to be here waiting for you. Right now you need to go watch all the other videos on this channel. There's over 1,800 waiting for you. Good night, Irene.